3. The betrayal unfolds. The questions I had tried so hard to ignore slowly became impossible to silence. Every day seemed to bring another small moment that didn't quite make sense. On their own, each one could be explained away. Together, they formed a picture I wasn't ready to face. His phone had become an extension of his hand. It was never left unattended anymore. If he walked into another room, it went with him. If he stepped outside to take a call, he lowered his voice until I couldn't hear a single word. Even when we sat together on the couch watching television, the screen always faced away from me. I told myself I was imagining things. I reminded myself that trust meant respecting someone's privacy. But trust shouldn't feel this lonely. One evening, while we were eating dinner, his phone lit up on the table. Before I could even glance at it, he grabbed it so quickly that his fork fell onto the floor. He laughed nervously. Work never stops. That was his explanation. Again. It had become the answer to almost everything. Late meetings. Weekend calls. Cancelled plans. Unexpected trips. Everything was because of work. At first, I admired his dedication. Now, I wasn't so sure. The emotional distance between us grew wider every week. We still lived in the same house, but it no longer felt like we were living the same life. Our conversations became shorter. We stopped sharing the little stories that used to fill our evenings with laughter. Sometimes I would ask him how his day had been. He answered with a single sentence. Then the conversation ended. The silence that followed hurt more than any argument could have. One weekend, I suggested taking a short trip together, just the two of us. We hadn't spent quality time alone in months. He smiled politely before checking his calendar. I'm sorry. I already promised work I'd be available. The disappointment on my face must have been obvious because he immediately added, we'll plan something soon. I nodded. But deep inside, I had stopped believing the word soon. A few days later, something unexpected happened. While cleaning the living room, I found a receipt tucked inside the pocket of one of his jackets. It wasn't unusual for him to forget receipts. What caught my attention was the date. According to him, he had spent that evening working late at the office. The receipt told a different story. It showed dinner at an expensive restaurant across town. 2 meals. 2 desserts. 2 drinks. I stared at the paper for several minutes. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a business meeting. Maybe he paid for a coworker. Maybe. I noticed myself making excuses before he had even given one. Instead of confronting him, I quietly folded the receipt and placed it back exactly where I had found it. I wasn't trying to trap him. I was trying to understand the truth. From that moment on, I paid closer attention. Not obsessively. Just enough to notice what I had ignored before. The stories he told didn't always match the timeline. The places he claimed to visit didn't always make sense. He mentioned coworkers whose names constantly changed. Every explanation sounded believable until I compared it with another. Then the cracks began to appear. One afternoon, while organizing paperwork, I noticed that one of our shared financial statements had arrived earlier than expected. I wasn't searching for anything suspicious. I simply happened to see several unfamiliar purchases. Hotels. Restaurants. Weekend expenses. None of them matched the work trips he had described. My hands grew cold. I checked the dates. Then checked them again. There was no mistake. The evidence wasn't dramatic. It wasn't one shocking discovery. It was dozens of small details quietly fitting together like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to complete. That evening, I watched him laugh at something on his phone. He looked happier than he had looked with me in months. I smiled anyway. Not because I was happy. Because I wasn't ready for him to know what I had started to see. The next morning, another anonymous message appeared. You're finally asking the right questions. I looked around instinctively, as if someone might be watching me. Whoever was sending these messages somehow knew exactly where I was emotionally. It terrified me. But it also confirmed something I could no longer deny. I wasn't imagining any of this. Someone else had seen it too. Over the following days, I quietly documented everything. Dates. Times. Receipts. Conversations. Cancelled plans. I kept everything private. No dramatic confrontations. No emotional arguments. No accusations. If I was going to face the truth, I wanted facts, not assumptions. The hardest part wasn't gathering the evidence. The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Every morning, I kissed him goodbye. Every evening, I welcomed him home. I laughed at his jokes. I listened to his stories. All while carrying a growing weight inside my chest. Some nights I cried quietly after he fell asleep. Not because I had proof. Because I still hoped the proof would somehow disappear. Hope can be strangely stubborn. Even when the truth stands right in front of you. Then came the moment that changed everything. He left his laptop open before rushing out to answer a phone call. I wasn't planning to look. In fact, I stood up intending to close it. But before the screen went dark, a message notification appeared. Just one sentence. Short. Simple. Personal. Far too personal to be explained away. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. When he returned a few moments later, he closed the laptop almost instantly. His smile looked forced. "You okay?" I nodded. "I just feel tired." That wasn't entirely a lie. I had never felt more emotionally exhausted. Over the next several days, every remaining doubt disappeared. The timelines didn't match. The excuses repeated themselves. The hidden conversations continued. The financial records confirmed more than I ever wanted to know. None of the discoveries alone would have destroyed my trust. Together, they became undeniable. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was waiting for me to accept it. I looked around our home one evening, the framed photographs, the vacation souvenirs, the handwritten notes we had once exchanged, the plans pinned to the refrigerator, and the dreams we had talked about for years. For so long, I believed they represented our future. Now they felt like decorations covering a painful reality. The hardest realization wasn't that he had lied. It was understanding how long those lies had existed. Every promise suddenly sounded different. Every memory carried new questions. Every smile became uncertain. I wasn't just grieving the relationship I thought I had. I was grieving the version of my life that never truly existed. Standing alone in the quiet house we had built together, I finally accepted the truth I had been fighting for so long. The relationship I had protected with loyalty, patience, and unconditional trust wasn't falling apart because of one mistake. It had been built on lies from the very beginning.